Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Lisa Richter, and I will be your host today. On the off chance that you don't know about CSIA, we are a global nonprofit trade association with over 500 member companies in 35 countries. For system integrator members, the CSIA Best Practices Manual and CSIA Certification are some of the more popular member benefits, but you will also enjoy a variety of others, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the SI's unique business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your SI programs, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. In case you are not a current member or haven't renewed your membership, now is a great time to join and renew. Membership provides you many benefits, including a full lineup of virtual events and other resources for you and your entire team, from accounting to sales to operations, 365 days per year. Members can also take advantage of discounted registration rates for the in-person CSIA Executive Conference scheduled for June in Denver. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderators, Steve, and the panelists, John, Bridget, Nathan, and Greg. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. This is Steve March with Schneider Electric. It's my pleasure to facilitate this conversation today on the standards and offers associated with universal automation. Just to provide a little bit of background, in 2017, the Open Process Automation Forum was launched. In 2020, Schneider Electric launched EcoStruxure Automation Expert, an offer that we positioned as the world's first universal automation offer. And in November 2021, the universalautomation.org initiative was launched, an international nonprofit association whose mission is to drive adoption of the IEC 61499 runtime reference implementation and to usher in an era of plug and produce automation applications. These are really important developments in our industry, and it's my hope that today we can all learn more about them during this webinar. So with that, I'd like to welcome our panel of experts who will be sharing their observations, tips, maybe some success stories with us today. Let's start with, if I may, Bridget Fitzpatrick from Wood Group. Bridget?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Bridget Fitzpatrick. I'm the Global Technical Lead for Process Automation Systems for Wood, and happy to be here.
Excellent, thank you. Nathan Henderson from George T. Hall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. System integrator out of Northern Nevada here in Reno. Again, looking forward to being part of this, and again, really excited about where we're heading as a whole.
Outstanding, thanks. We also have with us a couple of representatives from universalautomation.org. The president, John Conway. John, say hello.
Yes, hi everybody. John Conway, pleasure to be here to be talking to you today. As Steve said, I'm actually an employee of Schneider Electric, working inside our industrial automation incubator, designing our next generation automation systems. But my job, along with Greg, is to drive adoption of a new, exciting new technology, and this is what universalautomation.org is all about. And we'll explain a bit more about that today. Hopefully it will be clear at the end of the call.
Outstanding, thank you, John. And Greg Boussard, Chief Marketing Officer for universalautomation.org. Greg?
Yeah, hi everybody. So my name is Greg Bucco. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for universalautomation.org, and I'm happy to be here today to talk to you more about the organization.
Outstanding. Well, let's dive right in, John. Greg, let me start the conversation with you. Universalautomation.org has been described as the missing link to Industry 4.0. And we're all excited about Industry 4.0, have been talking about waiting to see great implementations of it. So tell us more about it. Tell us more about this. What does this mean that universalautomation.org is the missing link?
Sure, Steve. So yeah, Industry 4.0, Industrial Internet of Things. I mean, it goes by different names. Digitization is, we talk about digital transformation a lot. I mean, in simple terms, it's really very straightforward. It's about how do I interface, the real-time control, which is inside a PLC or DCS system. How do I interface that real-time control with an IT application to do something useful? Okay, simple examples like send some real-time data to an analytics system, a machine learning system, so it can potentially detect a problem before it occurs, and do some planned maintenance and stop some unplanned downtime. That's one obvious example. Another example is a digital twin. Okay, what is a digital twin? It's about interfacing again the real-time data inside a PLC to a simulation software running on an IT server somewhere. Okay, so in simple terms, Industry 4.0, Industrial Internet of Things, it's about connecting together the real-time data with an IT application of some sort, okay? To achieve obviously some benefit for the user, improve throughput, reduce downtime, maybe increase production flexibility, shorter production runs, whatever, okay? Now PLCs, they're really good at doing real-time control. That's what they were designed to do. They've been doing that for 30 years. Scan-based systems, excellent at controlling a process, controlling a machine. But they're not good for interfacing to an IT system, to an IT application, like a piece of simulation software. You can do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do it. And I'm sure people on the call today are doing it today. But it's not so simple, and it's quite expensive, and it's not so easy to maintain over time. So that's the first point. The second point, the PLCs by themselves, they're proprietary in nature, okay? And they're closed. Now, by closed, what do I mean by being closed? They're essentially, if I write a software application to run on one vendor's PLC, I can't take that software application and run it on another vendor's PLC. I have to rewrite it, retest, and revalidate, okay? Now, if I'm doing a digital twin, for example, so I spend a lot of time writing some software to connect this PLC to a simulation tool from ANSYS to do, for example, a digital twin of a pump. If when I then change the PLC, I have to rewrite the software, that's just not financially sustainable. Okay, so really to realize the promise of Industry 4.0. We need two things. We need automation systems where you can design portable software applications. So I can create applications that are hardware independent and run them on different automation platforms. And of course, I need multiple vendors supporting this approach, okay? Now, as you said, Steve, you said Schneider Electric, we launched EcoStruxure Automation Expert last year. We positioned it as the first universal automation system, and we explained that universal automation was essentially a plug and produce approach to automation. So taking proven and new software components, plugging them together to create an application to solve a complex use case like digital twin, like analytics, etc., etc. So basically, this technology enabled by IEC 64099, we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. It's exciting technology, but the bottom line is, if it's just Schneider Electric doing this, it's just one more proprietary system, okay? So at the end of the day, we have to get other vendors on board, we have to get users using it, and this is why we created universalautomation.org.
Great, that is a fantastic introduction, John. Greg, could you maybe jump in? Tell us a little bit more about now the organization itself. We understand a little bit about its purpose. Tell us a little bit about universalautomation.org, if you would.
Yes, Steve. So basically, universalautomation.org is a non-profit independent association which was created on November 3rd, as you mentioned, last year. It was let's say, the end of a 1 year work of 20 companies working together to draft the article of association, to agree on an IP policy. But at the end, what is universalautomation.org? Universalautomation.org is an association which promotes the portability of the software. So meaning that, as John said, you can take or drive the software or drive an application for working on one hardware from one vendor, and take the same application and run it on another hardware vendor. So basically, decoupling the software from the underlying hardware. So one part. The next part will be the interoperability of the hardware as well, which is at the core of Universal Automationorg. The idea of the IT and OT conversions to really achieve what John described with the Industry 4.0 or Industry of the Future, naming it as you wish, but basically really linking your automation system, your OT system with the IT applications such as digital twin, such as data analytics, big data or predictive maintenance, all that good stuff that you can do with the IT. And the last but not least, the idea of plug and produce. What is plug and produce? So basically, it's the same as the plug and play for, let's say, the B2C application. So you come there, you have your application, and you can just take some apps from, or let's say some program from others running on your own application, and then your machine or your process just works. How Universal Automationorg is doing that? It is doing that by and this is quite innovative as well for the industry market. It's doing that by setting a reference implementation of the IEC 64099 standard. So as such, the org itself is not working on developing, let's say, further the 64099 standard because it already exists today. But it's just saying, okay, here is an interpretation of the standard in form of a runtime. So this is the reference implementation, which is today the runtime which is inside, or let's say used within EcoStruxure Automation Expert. And this runtime will be, let's say, will be put in the association and available to all members with a royalty-free license. So members, when they are part of the organization, they get access to this runtime and they can port it to their own product, then creating this ecosystem of product, basically. So really, the association, the members of the association are for sure vendors, or the vendors, including Schneider Electric, which let's say came up with the technology, which is today already in EcoStruxure Automation Expert, but as well other vendors from the OT side, as well as from the IT side, because it opens up as well new possibilities in terms of markets. Not to forget, we have as well users inside the organization. So users could be end users, could be system integrators, could be OEM from process or machine. And in fact, we need both. We need vendors to provide offers on the market, and we need users to use this offer and to make project with it. So it's really working both hand in hand. And as well, members which are part of the association can manage this runtime and can decide which are the next increment, which are the next functionalities which come into that runtime. So like if you want to influence the runtime and the way it goes, and if you have special functionality which you want to see inside it, then come and join us. Be a member of universalautomation.org, and then we can all together manage and vote the next increment of the runtime. So really, we have an exciting technology. Yeah, just 2 minutes. We have an exciting technology. We have a technology enabler. We have software component with a 64099. We have an independent nonprofit association, which is universalautomation.org. And of course, we will have offers on the market. So vendors will provide offers on the market. The first on the market being today, EcoStruxure Automation Expert. Steve, I think I answered your question.
Yes. Quite a vision, and we appreciate that. IEC 61499 is an important part of this. John, could you explain that a little bit further?
You're on mute, John.
You're on mute, John.
Okay, can you hear me?
It had to happen once.
Okay, it was going to happen, wasn't it? It was always going to happen. So yes, I mean everyone knows the 61131 standard, right? The 5 programming languages for PLCs. Well, 64099 was actually created by the same people that created 61131. But let me say straight away, it's not a standard for programming languages of a PLC. It's a design language for distributed automation and control systems. So essentially, it's the basic building block, the fundamental building block of 64099 is what we call an event-driven function block. So just like a function block 1131 with data in and data out, except the event-driven function block, it's got event in and event out. So basically, in simple terms, when I trigger an event on the input, an algorithm inside the block takes the data on the data input, runs the algorithm, and writes the output to the data output pins and sets an event output, okay? Now, some fundamental points though. This event-driven function block actually only works on local variables. There are no global variables. So in simple terms, this is a true object, okay? So a true software component, if you like. So for an automation guy, it's a function block, he kind of gets it. For an IT guy, he sees an object, he sees a software component. And this thing could even be a black box component. You know, I don't know how this thing works. I just know what it does. I have a software component to send data to Amazon Web Services. I know if I put the data on the input bins and I hit the event input, the data gets sent to Amazon Web Services. I don't know how, I don't care. I just know what it does and I can use it, okay? So that's the fundamental building block. Secondly, then the standard has three models, and the standard goes to great lengths to separate the application with an application model. So the application model basically defines how to build applications as networks of these event-driven function blocks. Then there's a device model, which defines the hardware resources on which the application will run. And then there's a system model, which then says, how do I distribute that application to my devices, okay? And then it takes the application, distributes it to the devices. The device could be a PLC, could be edge computer, could be a variable speed drive, a smart actuator. It distributes the application, and all the communications between devices is taken care of transparently. It doesn't have to be done by the user, okay? So in very simple terms, it's hardware independent software components that can be plugged together to create an application that can then be distributed to a hardware architecture of choice, centralized, highly distributed. That's a customer choice, the actual architecture, okay? So in simple terms, that's the sort of the 5-minute explanation of what 64099 is.
That's very helpful, and it's interesting because it enables not only classic PLCs but field devices like drives or edge computing devices, with Raspberry Pi or multi-core edge computers. It's fascinating. And now I want to turn the conversation. Thank you, John and Greg, for that background. Bridget, Nathan, could you guys talk to us a little bit about your perspective? What does this mean in practice? Maybe a little bit about what your individual organizations do, Wood and George Hall, but also your membership in universalautomation.org. Bridget, could we start with you?
Absolutely. So Wood is proud to be a founding member of the UAO organization, and we do sit on the board, or actually I specifically sit on the board. So it's been interesting to help John and Greg as we form the whole organization, and looking forward to continued support there. For Wood, we're one of the world's largest systems integrators, and when some of these concepts were initially introduced, we immediately saw a lot of value. We tend to think of ourselves in two ways. One as a bit of a super systems integrator, where we take on kind of a broader reach potentially and more deeply technical issues, and as process control and automation experts. So we have around 1,100 people in our group, and we support a broad range of platforms, and we've kind of perfected our way of doing automation and control on all of those platforms. So the whole notion of universal automation immediately set off light bulbs of, we can take the best of everything we've learned, crystallize it into an offering of how we do it, and help our clients as a technology partner, help them use our technology, but also encapsulate their own and capture their own. So it really just seemed like it was a powerful notion. We were fortunate to be part of the ExxonMobil pilot that they did in Clinton, New Jersey. And I was the technical lead from the Wood side for that. And we basically did some function block library development. We did all the applications development, the HMI and the support up to the MES system and reporting. So it was definitely a great opportunity to jump in and see how this all worked. And we definitely had, controllers from Phoenix Contact, Intel, Yokogawa, and some other devices from Moxa. And as part of it, we moved applications around from box to box to prove out that the portability worked and that they all interoperated together. And really, what surprised me as a bit of an old dog, I kind of went in thinking, all right, I have to figure out how I can brute force just migrate the old stuff to this new stuff. And as I got deeper in it, I found a lot of elegance to the offering in EAE. And to John's point of the event-driven function block, there's a lot of just opportunities to improve control and improve calculational efficiency that was interesting to prove out. And really, probably one of the things that impressed me most was the ease of using the modular design. And there's lots of claims out there from varied systems over the decades of how this one makes it much easier to do things. And I definitely can tell you that the modularity of EAE is kind of head and shoulders above anything that we've encountered. So we've been doing modular designs and cloning things for decades, and this was dramatically easier. So definitely, as we went through the Exxon adventure, we definitely reaffirmed that there really was something here. So we're happy to be part of it. So how about you, Nathan?
Bridget, you nailed it. As a system integrator, this is honestly a game changer for us. George C. Hall is vendor agnostic, although Schneider is one of our strongest partners. But like you said, when you develop a project, it's not really reusable, not truly. You can reference it, you can use it as a base for what you want to develop, but there really is no proprietary transferability from what you've built to the next job. This is where things change. With IEC 61499, we now have the ability to not only reuse code across many different vendors, but to resell that proprietary knowledge. As a system integrator, you are now able to encapsulate specific programs and market it. This is equivalent to being an app store in some sense of the way for system integrators. Again, reusability of code, portability of code is really what is so exciting about this. Yeah, that's
excellent. Thank you. I did notice, I wanted to note, I saw at least one question come in there, maybe more. I'm not able to keep an eye on all of them, but I do want to try and help us get through some of the basic conversation that we had, but we do plan for time to get to those questions that are coming in on the chat. So please keep them coming. Specifically, one of the things that came up in that conversation, I think, and previously with John, we talked about universal automation systems, and for that matter, EcoStruxure automation expert specifically supporting either event-driven execution or cyclic-driven execution. We all know cyclic-driven programming, but Bridget, tell us about your experience using the IEC 61499 event-driven paradigm and how that worked.
Yeah, absolutely. It really was interesting, and it's one of those things that there's a little bit of a learning curve, but the interface for design is structured such that it helps you get there kind of fast. John talked about an event and an event output. So as you write things, you can kind of watch the event output count up. So as things start to go crazy on you, you start seeing counters going crazy, and you can go figure out what you did wrong. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but what we found, and it really is kind of, in the last few years, there was a new PID algorithm that was thrown out on the market called PID Plus that did some portions of its calculations only when there was a new PV. And there were some advancements in controllability with that. So EAE really takes it a step further and really gives the designer complete control over what your algorithms are doing. So at Wood, we basically have a function block library with all the kind of normal instrumentation and control algorithms in there. And what we found is the actual PID versus ratio control equation is the simplest part of what you're doing. So we basically wrote our own function block library in 6.11.31, and then we're using some of the power of EAE with the custom execution model to basically port that into 6.14.99. And what we found is that you can get better control, and like I said, better calculational efficiency. So one of the strengths of Industry 4.0 and all of these movements, whatever name you give them, is that we're putting more intelligence on the edge. So we have very nice edge computers that we certainly can do all of this basic control that we're talking about, but we also can put, AI enabled things at the edge. And the EA platform is interesting kind of in its calculational efficiency and flexibility, that it really can support driving that intelligence down to the right level and really taking everything from the OT floor up the IT stack to the enterprise to add value where it makes sense. So definitely a lot of power there.
Yeah, well, and it brings us to one of kind of, I think, the key points of this whole discussion. I mean, one of the claims that's made by Schneider Electric about infrastructure automation expert, which is kind of surprising coming from a hardware manufacturer, is that EAE is hardware independent. What do we mean by hardware independence? Why is that important?
So it really is important so that as things evolve, if we've learned nothing over the last couple decades, is that the IT world changes daily. So one of the things that EAE and hardware independence leverages is that you can buy whatever the best in class box you want to buy, and leverage it and use it. And 3 weeks later, if a box dies, you just put in whatever your favorite new box is, and you're good to go. You don't have to, going back to a lot of Nathan's comments, you don't have to redesign your applications. You just redeploy them on whatever box you happen to plug in. So it kind of takes the value of the IT plug and play and turns it into the plug and produce, where that ease of hardware replacement is driven down into the control and manufacturing layers.
Wow. Now, that's all well and good, very interesting, but today, to the best of my knowledge anyways, we really only have offers from Schneider Electric on the market. Greg or John, what about other vendors? Are we seeing interest? Are we seeing this develop to the point where there will be multiple vendors coming and joining in on this platform?
So in fact, that's why we have universalautomation.org. Universalautomation.org, as I stated in the beginning, it's having vendors and users all together and around that runtime. And the idea, when you join as well Universal Automation, you engage yourself as a vendor to put an offer on the market in a foreseeable time. So it means for this year, the plan is to have 5 offer launches, which are non-Schneider Electric offers, launch on the market for this year, so that companies, people can use it in their own projects or proof of concept. But even today, I mean, we speak about EcoStruxure Automation Experts. It comes with a software, so you have the build time on one hand, you have the products on the other end, like a variable speed drive, like a PLC, even small TCS system. So and even the possibility to run the runtime on a server with the soft pack. So today already the offer that is available is already good, and you can already take it and use it on the market. But for sure, there will be other offers coming this year. So I said 5 offers. That's the goal for this year, and there will be more offers to come on the next years as well. But for me, what is as well interesting is what Bridget mentioned. Bridget mentioned that she was working as well on the test bed for ExxonMobil. Maybe Bridget, you can tell us more about this test bed.
Yeah, like I talked about previously, that basically the test bed, we had controllers from Intel, Phoenix Contact, Yokogawa, and Moxa on the test bed, and then we had kind of generic upper level control servers, and we basically moved the controls around from box to box a bit to test it out, and actually at one point we did have a box kind of become unhappy with us, and so we kind of, as we were about to commission, permanently moved some things around. So we definitely proved out that our function blocks could run on any of those different boxes. And when you look at just the non-OPA EAE installs, that there are machine drivers back to a wide variety of PLCs. So sometimes when we talk about this, it's this grand nirvana vision of the future that once we get over this mountain, everything will be able to talk to everything. And the reality of it is, with standard protocols, there are a wealth of things that already can talk on EAE and have been proven out. So it's really, it's an interesting platform where potentially, if you want to get to that ultimate nirvana, you probably can start by putting EAE over top of a variety of hardware that you may already have.
That's fantastic. And I think one of the important points that was brought up earlier, and then again in this part of the conversation, is that vendors can join this organization, end users can join this organization, system integrators can join this organization. It's really a community and ecosystem that creates not only hardware but software and apps and programs and so forth that all interact to realize the vision. We talk about universal automation applications executing directly in intelligent devices like drives, like virtual machines, containerized software environments. How does that work, and what is the benefit? Nathan?
Steve, it's a novel concept, and it's hard to compare to anything else. The distribution of the code and the software can exist at a drive level. You can add with Schneider the DPACs onto the physical drives and utilize the onboard I/O to replicate a PLC. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Whether it's a small processor or the high-end M580 processor, the code is distributed across many devices. The benefit there is the flexibility in redesigning code. That if you're an agile manufacturer that has to produce a varying degree of products, rapid engineering changes are possible. When the software is decoupled from the hardware, then you're no longer concerned about sticking with one specific manufacturer. As long as anybody is part of this universalautomation.org group, it's stamped, it's certified, and honestly, it allows integration at a level that has only been vendor specific. From what I've seen, manufacturers try to keep their code and their software local. They have legacy offerings, and they do everything they can to keep that in place. This is the paradigm shift that is similar to OPC, to Linux operating systems. This is the segue towards many, again, proprietary systems coming together. This, yeah.
That's,
Hey,
go ahead,
Nathan.
Bridget.
It's so, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah,
just
no,
such a
yeah, no worries.
vague, and, you know, we're in the formative stages. I see such potential, you know, as a system integrator. I know that mass adoption has to be taken in, and that once other vendors jump on, this is going to be the new standard moving forward.
Yeah, Nathan, one of the things that really jumped out at me early days, which I'm sure did to you as well, was the notion that as a control person, you can decide the scope of what you're putting together. So you can, you know, the whole, you know, a lot of the complexity of what we do is to try and figure out how to be robust enough and redundancy and all of this. But if you make it modular enough, then yeah, you've got that, you know, that device on your machine, and if it
Sure.
fails, it's just that one machine, right? So
And to your point, you know, we're not just looking at reference projects. We have a proven, validated system that we can now deploy at another project because we know that it works. And when the software is decoupled from the hardware, we have a proven system based on previous projects. You know, it's not just we've done something like this in the past, and you know, you should have our confidence that we can do this again. It's a validated system, and that's what's new.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
here, use
both
our
mentioned-
stuff.
Well, yeah, it gives the integrator the opportunity to say that. Exactly.
It does.
You both mentioned project efficiency as a benefit. There's actually a study out there indicating when you take and evaluate the tasks required for a typical automation project, creating applications, importing libraries, creating logic, configuring devices, developing HMI, that deploying a project with EcoStruxure Automation Expert could save 2/3 of the hours for those tasks compared to some existing systems. Now that's a typical kind of, you know, manufacturer, save 2/3 of the hours, save 40%. But I mean, that claim is substantial. That can provide a big advantage in a bid situation. It could help the company be more profitable on their projects, or both. How are those kinds of labor savings possible? Do you think that's realistic? And if so, why or how is that possible?
Yeah, you know, I think it's the right order of magnitude for sure. But it does require a little bit of a change in how you design projects and how you think about them. You certainly could make it take as much time as it always did. So if you jump in and you're not seeing the savings, then I would suggest you step back and look at what you're doing. That ExxonMobil project that I talked about basically had 4 trains of operation and then a little bit of common stuff. And basically what we did was we designed one of the trains, you know, kicked it around the corner a few times, decided it was good, and then we decided to then clone it for the other 3 trains. And when we first started to do it, we were carrying along some of our habits of the past. But as we worked with the folks, you know, from EAE, they basically, you know, kind of asked a few interesting questions. And what we ended up doing was essentially having a lot of the things that were custom from train to train, the tag names, the specific ranges, things like that. We really put them in only one spot. So the traditional way of cloning, where you thread the name through 15 spots along each thread, we essentially didn't do. So we just kind of restructured how we designed it. And in all seriousness, when we went to go from 1 train to 4 trains, you know, it seriously took us half an hour or so, which is just dramatically different. So that there really is a lot of elegance in the system, and you know, if you change how you think about it, you really can leverage it. So you're nodding your head, Nathan. Similar response?
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, again, so much of what we do is replicated over and over again. You know, as system integrators, we deal with many verticals, many different industries, and there is so much code that is reusable, but it's really not yet. You know, and that's what IAC 61499 is going to create, is that environment where you had a previous wastewater customer that was Siemens based, and you've got a new project that's Schneider based. And now you don't have to rewrite the code, which, you know, was already an advantage going in, you know, knowing the system, knowing the operation, having a similar reference project. Now you can just plug that code in directly if the hardware is decoupled from the software. And it's almost strange to talk about because it's so unfamiliar, you know. As an integrator, it's a fantastic concept. But it really is reuse of code. Yeah.
I think we've heard some of the answers, but I want to give everybody a chance to kind of re-summarize as we're winding down, and maybe address also Greg or John that we want to repeat that the membership categories that everybody can join, universalautomation.org. But before we kind of break and allow some time for Q&A, let me ask each of you, maybe kind of go around roundtable to provide your perspective. What would make me want to adopt an open automation system? What business benefit do you see that would make me want to suggest it to a customer? From my perspective, you know, being their trusted advisor as their system integrator, why would they want to try this?
Can I start? Steve, I would say
Sure,
it's agility.
Sure.
I would say that it's agility. It's the ability to, especially in today's world where supply chain challenges are so difficult, you know, being able to support many different vendors on the same software platform is a novel concept. You used to have to buy a third-party platform like Aviva or others, and that was your segue. That was your interface. This eliminates that layer. This really decouples the hardware from the software. And if you're in a factory where you have physical infrastructure, but you're making many different products, the agility that you are able to have at your fingertips it's unprecedented. You know, you used to have to rewrite code in Siemens and Schneider and Allen Bradley, and then you would have to port them to a third-party software. And it was a lot of work. Now everything exists on the same development environment. Agility with multiple vendors taking strengths from many different suppliers and really tying them all together. It was impossible previous to this.
Okay, thank you. Bridget?
I think for me, the biggest attraction is the notion that you really can capture the intellectual property in how you're doing whatever it is you're doing on the control system. That, you know, in the past with the legacy proprietary systems, you picked the flavor that you wanted to use, and then it becomes kind of a compromise of doing the best you can with that platform. And what EAE and where we're going with it provides is the ability really to pick the best in class solution from whomever, and really to, you know, instead of an endless cycle of rip and replace every couple decades, that you really can, you know, redesign to capture the IP, to fine tune it to exactly what you need, and then just keep that forever. That it's not this endless cycle of kind of redesign. And because it really is the merging of the IT and the OT finally in a way that's reasonably usable and supportable and won't break 6 months down the road, that you can take that IP from the control layer all the way up to the enterprise and really get the value out of your system wherever it lives. So it's not a cookie cutter, here's the best solution. It's a platform where you get to really design your own cookies, I guess.
Excellent, thank you. Greg, John, I want to give you a chance as well quickly before we jump to Q&A. Final thoughts?
Yeah, Steve, I come back to the starting point of the conversation, right? About, the world is more and more complex. I mean, we had the COVID pandemic and now we have the war in Ukraine. And now I guess a lot of you today are probably fighting to get parts for projects because you can't get parts delivered from your suppliers. So the world's getting more and more complex. And part of the answer is software to address this more complex world that we live in. Okay. And so we're going to have to invest more and more time and effort and money in software. We all want to be profitable, right? We want to do innovation for our customers because if we don't, somebody else will. So it's the future is about software. So automation systems, we don't want PLCs to be relegated to the past. They need to evolve, and we think the 64099 standard is the right step up from 1131. I personally don't believe in programming in programming applications in C++ and Python, because how does the maintenance guy deal with that, right? So for us, 4099, it's just the right step up from where we are today to a world where it's acceptable to automation engineers, they can get it, but it's also object-oriented software reusable software components, hardware independence. It's those things we need to be able to invest more money in software and get a good return from that investment. Okay. And provide value to our customers at the end of the day. And if we don't do it, somebody else will. So yeah, for me, that's the main point. We have to invest more in software. We need better tools to do it. 64099 is a good step.
Excellent. Greg, final thought?
Yeah. So really for me, I mean, first, as a system integrator, when you go to a customer and you are part of the org and you provide product from which are having the runtime of UA onto it, you have a project which is future proof. So it means that even today, even though you not have the connection to the IT application, you know that tomorrow we can do it quite easily, because on the way, the standard what we use, you could use some prepared function blocks to some prepared application, in fact, to do the link to whatever future IT application the customer needs. So first, future-proof application. Then we speak from disruption of supply. What I see as well is end of life of product. What happens when you have an end of life? You have to revamp the whole things. You cannot reuse the code, even if you stick with the same supplier. You have most of the time to rewrite the code. Here you have a future-proof or end-of-life proof application. So it means the code that you have can be used even with future hardware on which the runtime is ported. So really, it's really a high value for the customer. And for me, the third point as a system integrator is the possibility for you to sell your intellectual property. Today, your knowledge is tightly linked with the hardware you sell. When you sell a project, you sell architecture, and you sell hardware, and even all your, let's say, knowledge that you have encapsulated into the software is tightly linked with the hardware. You cannot sell it by itself. Tomorrow, with Automationorg, you could sell your intellectual property. So it means, as Bridget said, okay, you're doing a PID control, which is better than the others. Okay, so now you pack it into a software component, and this software component, you can sell it to others. And the same, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You need to connect tomorrow to Amazon Web Server, or you need to do self-discovery on the product. There will be an app there that does that, and you can just use it. So it's really being part of the org is first sponsoring that advance and change the paradigm in which we live today, is matching really, let's say, what happens in the IT, and which is normal when you speak to IT people. What we do in automation, they're like, come on, guys, what are you doing there? Here we are really closer to the let's say, to the IT world as well. And you have really the chance, by being today a member of universalautomation.org, being really with us for the future of automation.
Excellent. I appreciate all those comments and that input. We are coming towards the top of the hour, but we do have some time left. I don't know if this is a bit of a curveball, but one of my team members, Gary Rodriguez from Schneider Electric is kind of backing me up here, and I'm hoping, I think he has been checking in on the Q&A on the chat to see if some of those questions have been answered by the discussion. Maybe Gary, could you call out if there are some that we want to address to the panelists?
Yeah, sure. A couple of these have I guess have been answered throughout the conversation in the panel today, but let me bring up a couple that may be still open. It'll be good to bring up. Here's one that says, in very vague terms, if I say I write a code in Allen Bradley and then convert it to something, say AML, and then download it to a Siemens PLC, is that something you foresee is possible? So I throw it to the panel. Anybody that wants to grab that answer, you can go ahead.
Yeah, let me try and answer that. Sure, I mean it's possible. Yeah, it's possible to take a program from a Schneider PLC and convert it to run on a Rockwell PLC, and we have tools to do that. Okay, and the conversion is about 80% good, but then you have to still retest and revalidate everything. Okay, when we talk about software portability, it means I have an application I download to a Schneider PLC and it runs. I take the same application, I download to another PLC, like a Finished Contact PLC, it runs. Okay. The only thing I have to do, I have to connect at some point. I have to connect the physical I/O to the application. I mean, at some point, I have to say that the process variable for this PID loop is this analog input. Okay, so that's when I have to make the connection between the application and the physical input output points, okay, of the process or the machine. But that's it. So really the same application, running in a Schneider PLC can be downloaded to a Finished Contact PLC. I just reassign the I/O and it runs. Okay, so that's a different level of portability. Okay, that's so yeah, that's and we as I said, that's for us. That's what we need if we're going to start interfacing our automation systems to other systems. Okay, we cannot be rewriting software all the time just when we change the PLC supplier. So we need a much higher level of portability, like you have today on your PC or telephone, right? We have this in the consumer world. Why do we put up with this in the industrial control world? Now I know industrial control is more complex than consumer. I program PLCs. I've done that. I understand that there are issues that we have to address in our world that are different to the consumer world, but nevertheless, basic portability of code, there's no reason why it shouldn't become a reality.
Okay, thanks, John. Great answer. All right, so let's keep going through these as they've come in. I see a comment here that says, could you please briefly cover the cybersecurity aspects of universal automation? Any thoughts on that?
I think one of the interesting things about these waves, which universal automation is as good a term as any of the others, is that there's really an effort to redesign cybersecurity to be there from the beginning, so it becomes part of your basic design. Some of the vendors will talk about it as it's in the silicone, it's in the chips, but cybersecurity is just so critical for all of our industries that as we do this redesign, we just have to do the cybersecurity inherent to the design rather than as a bolt-on later. So that, it was funny, I was looking at my notes of did we cover everything, and I had circled cybersecurity and realized we hadn't talked about it, but it's critical and really part of everything that we're talking about.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, maybe I can compliment that as well, Bridget. Schneider Electric, the EcoStruxure automation expert. We follow the. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but there's a standard for the way you design software and systems that is so they're cyber secure. So we follow that, and our aim is that automation expert is California law compliant. Okay, so last year, I think it was the previous release, it included a cybersecurity brick as part of the runtime with authentication, encryption, and all that good stuff. So yeah, the runtime is designed to be cyber secure, and that's an ongoing requirement.
All right, Okay, thanks, John. All right, we got two more here on the Q&A area. Using any IEC 61131 editor to make the sellable IP code using IEC 61499 in Universal Automationorg runtime, how does the source get protected? Are you supplying a compiled library? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
Lots of options as to how you deliver the IP and how tightly you kind of hide whatever parts of it you want to hide. So lots of options there. So you definitely can secure the IP.
Okay, awesome. All right, how about the next one? How is mapping to different physical I/O for different vendors handled?
Yeah, that's basically, it's actually quite simple. The I/O itself, there's within the design of the runtime, there's a generic view of I/O. It's called the I/O bus master. Okay, so essentially, physical I from different vendors is mapped to this generic view of the world. Okay, and then when I write an application, I link my application logical I/O to my physical I/O via this bus master generic I/O concept. So we'd have to do a demo to show how it works, but it's literally a drag and drop. I drag and drop the physical I/O across to the logical I/O, and it gets mapped. Okay.
Okay.
And what the vendors do when the vendors port the runtime to their platform, they have to do two things. They have to port the runtime to the operating system, okay, which is pretty straightforward if you're using Linux or VxWorks. But then what they then have to do is create what we call hardware cats. So it's essentially the objects that map their I/O bus system to this generic bus master system, okay? So that, the I/O from Schneider and the I/O from Phoenix Contact, it looks the same, okay? And that's essentially a library that the hardware vendor develops his library of hardware cats that you basically install if you want to use their hardware platform.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, John. Let me see if I see anything on the chat as well. I see one over here that says, do you have some graphs that would show some diagram flows as far as all the hardware decoupling goes and the software interfacing with this?
What was that again, Gary? Graphs that would show what?
Yeah. Do you have some graphs that would show some diagram flows as far as all the hardware decoupling that goes on and the software interfacing with it?
To hand, no, but we could explain if you leave your name and email address, we'll follow up and explain that. Okay. We didn't prepare anything for this call, but yeah, we can do that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
Yep. I think that's pretty much it. The other ones we pretty much answered on the Q&A. There was a question about what is EAE, so we answered that it's EcoStruxure Automation Expert, right, which is the Schneider Electric offer for universal automation. And there was another question saying, but is this open software available to the market, or is it still being created? And John answered that it exists. Schneider has an offer that you can use today.
Excellent. Okay.
Yep.
Steve, there's just one other question. There's a really important question. So I don't see the question right now, but it's something about, well, if we standardize the software and make it portable, won't the systems integration market shrink? Which is a really good question. Huh? Okay, and the answer is no. We expect, in fact, the opposite. Okay, because we actually expect that the market for proving new software components will grow substantially. Okay, so we actually believe it's not about doing low value things again and again, from one different proprietary platform to the next. It's about designing reusable software components that do really useful things, like sending data to analytics tools. You can imagine that the things to do to create proven new software components to useful things is just, the value is enormous. Okay, so we actually believe the value of the software will increase, not decrease.
Yeah, I would think, I don't know, maybe a useful analogy, if you think about that in the evolution of, there were smartphones before there were universal app stores and things like that, and the creation of those platforms that allowed everyone to program and create. certainly created an explosion, not a shrinkage in that market. So,
And we have a lot of wonderful ideas, and we used to only do it where there was huge value because there was so much pain, and now the pain's gone. So Nathan and I and our compatriots, I think we have lots of ideas. So we're excited.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to pop in here because we're at the top of the hour. My colleague Jennifer is going to share just one or two more slides. On behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank our moderator, Steve, and our panelists, John, Bridget, Nathan, and Greg, for this informative discussion. I would also like to thank Schneider Electric for sponsoring this event. And of course, thank you for attending. I'd also like to remind you that a recording will be available for viewing within the next couple of days. Be sure to bookmark the CSIA events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. This concludes our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.